Welcome to section 6.6, which is the remainder and factor theorems. Today we're going to be using a lot of what we learned when we did synthetic division, but we're going to be applying some new properties. If at any point I'm moving too fast, please make sure you pause the video or rewind it if you need to. First thing, we'll look at what we're doing. We're going to evaluate functions using synthetic substitution, and then we're going to determine if a binomial is a factor of a polynomial using synthetic substitution. And that synthetic substitution is related to synthetic division, which we did before. So synthetic substitution. If you're looking for f of r for some number r, we use synthetic division to divide f of x by r. The remainder is f of r. This is really convenient when the polynomial has a degree greater than 2. So we're going to do two examples. Here's the first one. It says find f of 3 for the given equation, that f of x. So normally you would take out your calculator, you would substitute 3 in for x. You can do that, but instead we're going to use synthetic substitution. What I do here is I'm dividing my polynomial by 3. My coefficients are -3, 5, and 4. Remember that you bring down the -3, and then I want to multiply. 3 multiplied by -3 is -9. Now add. 5 add -9 is -4. Multiply again. 3 multiplied by -4 is -12. When I add down, I get -8. This is the remainder. That's the important one. So we have found that f of 3 is equal to -8. If you go back and substitute in 3 for these x's, you're going to get -8 also. So that's it. That's synthetic substitution. Here's the example that I would like you to try. Please pause the video, try it on your own. Just as a reminder, there's something important you have to do when you go x to the third to x. Okay, first thing you should have done is put -4 in the box. Here was the tricky part. We have 2x to the third, 0x squared, -7x, and -8. If you forgot to put in that 0, you got the wrong answer. Or you probably did at least. So bring down your 2. Now multiply. -4 multiplied by 2 is -8. If I add down, I get -8. -4 multiplied by -8 is +32. Add down, I get 25. -4 multiplied by 25 is -100. Adding down, I get -108. So you should have found that f of -4 is equal to -108. So that was evaluating using synthetic substitution. Now we are going to determine if a binomial is a factor of a polynomial using synthetic substitution. So again, we're using synthetic substitution, but we're going to be adding on a little bit. So this is a review. We want to divide these two polynomials. So if we have x add 3, I want to put in -3 in the box. My coefficients are 2, -3, -17, and 30. Bring down the 2, multiply, I get -6, adding -9. Again, multiply, I end up with +27. When I add down, I get 10. Again, multiply, -3 multiplied by 10 is -30. Adding down is 0. Remember that this is the remainder. So I end up with 2x squared. If this is x to the third, this is going to start with 1 less. And then subtract 9x, add 10. This is my answer. Okay, so here's what's new today. The binomial x subtract r is a factor of the polynomial if and only if p of r is equal to 0. So you might want to pause the video right now and write that down. So if the remainder is equal to 0. So let's look at this one that we just did. We just found that when we divided, we got a remainder of 0. Because of that, we know that x add 3 is a factor. we ended up with 2x squared, subtract 9x, add 10. This is one factor. The other factor is x add 3. Then what it's going to ask you to do in the book is to find the remaining factors, which means you have to factor that part. This is a split the middle term. Remember, you have to do 2 multiplied by 10 is positive 20. So what are the two numbers that multiply to positive 20, add to be negative 9? Negative 4 and negative 5. So rewrite that middle term as negative 4x, negative 5x, add 10. Put your line down the middle. Left side, the greatest common factor is 2x. And I'm left with x minus 2. Right side, factor out at negative 5. So I have x subtract 2. So my two factors are 2x subtract 5, x subtract 2. But then I still have that x add 3 that I factored out earlier. It's okay if this is a little confusing. We're going to do another one together before you do one on your own. So this is generally how you will see the directions. It will say determine whether x add 5 is a factor of that polynomial. Then find the remaining factors. So first thing I want to do is synthetic substitution or synthetic division. If it's x add 5, negative 5 goes in the box. My coefficients are 1, 5, negative 16, and negative 80. So I bring down the 1, now multiply. 1 multiplied by negative 5 is negative 5. Adding down, I get 0. Negative 5 multiplied by 0 is 0. Adding, I get negative 16. Positive 80, 0. Remember that this is the remainder. If my remainder is 0, then x plus 5, yes, is a factor. So I'm going to say, yes, x add 5 is a factor. Okay, so one factor is x add 5. My other factor is x squared. This is an x squared, x constant. So x squared subtract 16. So find the remaining factors. What that means is factor this right here. Hopefully you remember that x squared subtract 16 is a difference of squares. That factors to be x subtract 4, x add 4, and then I still have that x add 5. So this is my final answer. We have 2 more and then we're done. Here's my trivia for the day. How many avocados does Chipotle use in a typical day? And then who supplies the avocados for Chipotle? I'm not going to tell you today. Think up an answer and come to class, but no cheating in looking the answer up online. Okay, so here's the one for you to try on your own. Please determine whether x subtract 2 is a factor, and then find the remaining factors. Pause the video, come back when you've completed it. Okay, you should have put 2 in the box, and then 1, 3, negative 4, negative 12. Bring down the 1. When I multiply, I get 2. Adding is 5. 2 multiplied by 5 is 10. Adding these, I get 6. 12, 0. Okay, my remainder is 0. So yes, x subtract 2 is a factor. One factor is x subtract 2. My other one is x squared add 5x add 6. Last thing I got to do is factor this. This is a product sum. What are the two numbers whose product is 6, who multiply to be 6, and that add to be 5? Those are x add 2 and x add 3. So this is my final answer. Again, we got one more problem and then we're done with notes. Same thing, determine whether it's a factor. If it is, find the remaining factors. Pause the video right now. Come back when you've completed it, please. Should have put negative 1 in the box. I get 1, negative 7, 4, 11. Bring down the 1, negative 1, negative 8, positive 8, 12, -12, -1. Okay, this one's different. It's not a 0. So is this a factor? No. Just stop right there. Okay, so this is what we did today. We did synthetic substitution. We used synthetic substitution to evaluate functions and then also to determine if a binomial is a factor. When you come to class, we will be doing some practice problems on these two objectives. Thank you and bye.